Thanks for joining Let's Talk Self-Driving Live. I'm Amanda, and I'm on the public affairs team at Waymo. Our mission at Let's Talk Self-Driving is to bring together people with diverse perspectives to satisfy your curiosity and inform you about the growth and adoption of self-driving. Metro Phoenix, and specifically a region called the East Valley, has played an integral role in the advancement of self-driving tech over the last several years. So we're asking, what has that meant for economic growth and development in Greater Phoenix so far? And how do experts hope it continues to evolve? Today, we'll hear the perspective of Denny Barney, CEO and president of PHX East Valley Partnership, a regional economic development coalition and a longtime member of Let's Talk Self-Driving. Denny, thanks for joining us today.
Good to be here. Thank you, Amanda.
So first and foremost, how are you doing? Given the light of everything that's happening in our world.
It's unique. I think everybody's trying to figure out what the new normal is going to be and how to navigate through these unprecedented times. I can tell you from my little family, we went from just my wife and I and our youngest son at home to within about a 2-week period, we had 8 people in our home. And with my daughter and son-in-law and our grandson with us, and boys back home from school and other places. And so on a personal level, it was super unique, probably something that we'll never experience again, to effectively have all of us in one place at one time for almost a month. And in that respect, I'll have some fond memories. Then there's the rest of the world that we're trying to navigate through and deal with, and it's complicated. And every day brings a new set of challenges. We're in the process of trying to get our youngest son figuring out what his senior year is going to look like, and is football season going to happen. And so everybody is dealing with challenges. Those are truly first world problems. I get it. We have food, we have shelter, we have safety, and yet we're all just trying to figure out how to make sense of it as we go along. So thank you for asking, and I hope you're doing okay.
So, speaking of all of these new challenges, I feel that COVID's caused a lot of individuals, businesses, communities to get creative to kind of solve this global crisis on a local level. So what are some of the innovative pivots that you've seen happening specifically in the East Valley?
Well, it's interesting. This is a global pandemic, but meeting that pandemic head on really is a local initiative. It's kind of you asking the question. But I think even more than local, it's a human initiative. And I think the way that we've seen people respond really most positively here in the PHX East Valley is how they've really focused on the human side of it. Their employees, the families of those that they serve, the communities that they serve. And so the pivot has been all over the board, frankly. We've seen, just as you have, and across the country and frankly around the world, a wide range of responses. Reactions, views, and perspectives on what should be done or what shouldn't be done. But what I've really been profoundly impressed with here in the PHX East Valley is how our companies, big and small, have responded to the human side of it. And we figured out that there's a lot of things that we've done historically that can be done differently. Certainly there's an efficiency loss in some regards. There's absolutely the loss of fidelity that comes with that human interaction, which is so critical to the way we work and do business in the East Valley. But watching these companies across the region respond at the human level has been probably the most dynamic part of it. And it's been different. It's been varied.
I absolutely connect with that. And I think that, some of that is in response to, how companies are adapting and, people kind of recognizing that, there's different applications, to your business functions.
Well, if I might respond to that, Amanda, certainly building familiarity is one thing, but it's building trust. In the PHX East Valley, we're familiar with autonomous vehicles. We see Waymo cars all over the road, and it's a positive thing. It's kind of seeing the future today where we live. You can go to other parts of Metro Phoenix or even certainly other states, and they don't have that same impression, same experience, because they don't have the familiarity that we have. But you touched on something that I think is pretty powerful, and that's this notion that Waymo has converted their platform to be utilized in a way that really is probably different than what was originally conceived, because the times are different. And so we've still seen the Waymo vehicles on the road. They're still moving people sometimes, but they're moving a lot of other things. And that's always been the thing that's been most exciting to me about Waymo, is the idea that we can move goods and services and people in a way that we can't even conceive today. And so I think in some respects, COVID-19 has probably accelerated the inevitable. It's certainly amplified the familiarity, and it's certainly building that trust. So.
Yeah, we at Waymo, our goal is to, make it easier and safer for people and things, to move around. And we did have local delivery, and we do have Class 8 trucks in Phoenix, but I agree that, maybe people weren't as aware of that. And so I do think that this has been an opportunity for us to,
to your point, people just
show.
thought of Waymo as a people mover. But I think that with COVID-19, you've kind of pulled back the curtain, if you will, and shown the breadth and the capacity of Waymo, and what you were already doing, frankly, that people on the street maybe didn't see so much in the vehicles that they were accustomed to seeing.
I want to touch on is, Phoenix's broad history of innovation and its growing reputation as a tech hub. Are you able to give a really high-level look at, what is the state of the state in Chandler, Arizona, or just East Valley, as far as, being a hub for innovation?
It's a great question, and frankly, it's one that we respond to often. I think that in many respects, the East Valley has been a long-kept secret. It's home to the most innovative university in the world, ASU, and that's not often what people historically have associated ASU as being, but it's been incredible to watch Dr. Michael Crow and his leadership team and tens of thousands of students transform the university, and that's changed the value proposition of the PHX East Valley in terms of the workforce. And of course, we have other great educational, institutional, and delivery systems that are here. But what's interesting about your question, Amanda, and certainly don't take offense, but think about this. Go back to kind of mid-century. Motorola was here. We had a lot of aerospace and other kind of emerging tech industries that were here at the time. Boeing came here more than almost 40 years ago. Intel has invested more than $30 billion of infrastructure starting 40 years ago. They just celebrated their 40th anniversary. So the irony is, this is not a new tech hub, but we've gotten a lot of attention recently. And I think that's just the culmination of all of these events, decades of building. And we joke that we're an overnight success that's taken 40 or 50 years to get here. I don't suppose that's different for any market, but now all of these elements are coming together. Waymo is certainly a piece of that. You bring a company like Waymo, and with Waymo, you have a certain set of high-tech jobs and certain high-tech opportunities, but you have all the secondary and tertiary jobs that come with that. Well, every high-tech, fintech, advanced manufacturing company that comes here, they bring all of those jobs with it, but they bring the secondary and tertiary jobs that come along with it. And with that, all ships rise with the tide, because every other service that's needed, that's required to serve that employee base, grows up around those tech jobs. So as a tech hub, I think we've been coming into our age, if you will, for a long time, but we've got a lot of attention recently. Let me just make this point, Amanda.
Sure.
The value proposition of the PHX East Valley going into COVID-19 was as strong as it's ever been. It was remarkably different than 2008, back in the subprime days, the last great recession, if you will. Certainly different than when the whole country was put into a state of turmoil and devastation because of September 11th, 2001. The underpinnings of our economy are different. The type of jobs are different. And that goes to the point that you're asking about, and that's, we have become a tech hub of sorts, and we are attracting a different kind of job demographic, and we have the workforce to meet that. And so Waymo, certainly, in my opinion, is a great addition to that, and we're grateful for what you represent here in the market. But to your point, it's part of a much bigger evolution that's happening, and frankly, it's been going on for a long time.
I really want to back up a little bit to your point about the talent in Arizona and the talent pool, so to speak, and kind of tell me a little bit about, are we doing a good job of keeping our talent that's educated at our state schools in Arizona? Are we doing a good job of attracting talent from out of state into Arizona? Talk to me a little bit about what that future of work value prop is.
That's a question that's very personal to me. I've got 4 children, and all 4 of them are in college. They're graduated from college, in college, or college bound. And we're blessed that that's something that we're able to see our kids do. But if we want to see our grandkids, we need them to be able to come back here and find a job to put those skills to work. And so it's a question that is critical. I think that it's kind of the chicken or the egg, if you will. Do you get the jobs first, or do you have the workforce first? And I would argue that right now we have really the emergence, the timing of both. ASU has done a remarkable job of recruiting students from across the country and around the globe. But right here in the PHX East Valley, Northern Arizona University has a campus. University of Arizona has a campus. So you have educational institutions from the north and the south parts of the state that are delivering education right here in our part of the world, because they see that the demand is here, both on the job side and the student side. And of course, you can't have that kind of educational delivery system at the higher education level if you don't have good P-12 and good community college systems. And so we have all of that. And so the reality is, I would argue that we had all of that first before we had all of the attention as a tech hub. And so now we have people from around the world, and specifically from other markets in the country, that are coming in and saying, hey, you have something to offer here in terms of great quality of life, a good stable tax environment, good healthcare delivery systems, world-class education delivery systems. And by the way, people can afford to buy a home, and we need to look at moving our company here. And when we've had site selectors in from around the country, the message that we hear louder than anything is, and I know this is going to sound probably promotional, and I don't mean it to, but the message that we hear is that you're not doing a good enough job telling your story. And so anytime we can get out there and let people know, hey, this is what we have to offer, and tell the story, we're excited to do that, because we think there is a value proposition that we have that will, when people understand it, when they see it, we're going to be at the top of any list as they're looking to either grow a business, move a business, corporate relocations. And so when Waymo said, hey, we want to come and we want to let this be an innovation center for us to test our vehicles here, of course, we were delighted, but we weren't surprised. So we're glad you're here.
In terms of, Waymo fitting into the narrative, and self-driving is now very much a part of the fabric of, the East Valley region. I think that this is a place where in many ways the self-driving industry is being pioneered. And so can you expand a little bit more on why this is exciting from an economic development and a personal growth perspective?
It's the future. And so anytime that we can have a glimpse of the future driving around on our streets today, that's a good thing. I can't understand why people wouldn't want that in their community. And so when we're faced with the proposition of what do we do to promote Waymo or businesses like Waymo, we're going to go to the end of the world to continue to amplify that message and to bring people like you here. I think we often take for granted what we see every day on the roadways around the East Valley, because the footprint of Waymo and the proliferation of Waymo it's unique here, and so from my vantage point, I think it's we're going to see more and more of it across all industries and all sectors. And the fact that the PHX East Valley has kind of been the point of the spear with Waymo, we're excited about it. Now, what does that mean to me personally? I'm excited for the day when I don't need to own a car. I went through this evolution about 10 years ago where I was trying to reduce the number of spark plugs. We had vehicles and off-road vehicles and watercraft and all these things, and I thought, man, I have so many spark plugs. I've got to figure out how to cut that down. Well, Waymo gives me a glimpse of what it could be like to literally not own any spark plugs in my personal garage. So that's exciting, and I think that people are starting to better understand what that looks like. Growing up, that was the Jetsons. That didn't exist. Well, today, that's closer than we think.
I think that you also have a unique perspective because you've been inside one of our vehicles. And, you recently took a ride probably sometime mid last year in a Waymo with your kids, and you allowed us to document the experience. So we captured it in a brief video, and we'd like to share that with viewers now.
I'm born and raised here in the Valley of the Sun. We love it here. This is where we've chosen to raise our family. And our home is kind of a gathering place. Really, the PHX East Valley is becoming a gathering place. I'm the sixth generation of my family to live here in the valley. Our ability to provide opportunity for the future is imperative so that our kids want to be in the PHX East Valley, working and living, starting their families, maybe starting a business, maybe working for one of the great businesses that are already here. I do what I do with the PHX East Valley Partnership. I served in elected office because, one, it's in my DNA, but more importantly, I want to create runways for my own family in the same way that my dad and my great-grandfather and great-great-grandfather created runways for me. It's that entrepreneurial spirit that thrives in the desert. We're innovative not because we want to be innovative, we're innovative because it's who we are. And that hardiness has been embedded in the way that we've built our economy here in the PHX East Valley. So this map kind of gives you a sense of the region. Maricopa County for the last 2 years has been the fastest growing county in the United States. Over time, the way we move people is going to have to change as we continue to see people pour into these urban centers like the PHX East Valley. What's really exciting for me is this idea that not only are we going to move people around more efficiently, more effectively, less impact on the environment, but that we're going to do that in a way that's abundantly safer. What Waymo does in this autonomous vehicle revolution is open the door to transportation and moving people. Waymo is responding to what the next generation of transportation is going to look like. Right now, we're at the front end of something that's going to be very, very special. To drive around town with teenage sons.
Waymo's a little smoother than you are.
One of whom is getting his license this week, and say, you will likely have children that won't have a driver's license because they won't need it. That's how transformative this is. When I look at the next generation of innovation in the PHX East Valley, it's happening now.
Let's talk briefly about the ride that you took with your family. What wasn't in that video? What was the conversation about the ride like around the dinner table later that day?
Well, there was conversations around the dinner table, but there was conversations in the car that I don't think the camera caught, and that was, I quickly realized that I was probably more of an aggressive driver than I needed to be. I felt safe. I felt comfortable. My boys probably picked up some of my bad habits, and I said, hey, we need to recalibrate how we drive here. We also joked a little bit about the very idea that it's a real possibility that my grandchildren won't need a driver's license because of where technology has allowed us to go from a safety and efficiency standpoint. And so, for example, there was a couple of moments on the ride where I was just focused on the screen. There's a big screen in front of these cars, and it's picking up all of this data that it's collecting from all of the technology that's embedded into the car, cameras and sensors and things that I don't even understand. but it's also collecting data from external sources, and it's importing all of this data and putting it, pieces of it on the screen. And this screen is capturing things that I'm not even seeing. And it's identifying things before we would see them as human passengers. And so we were astounded by that. Both of my sons who were with us, who are much more adept at technology than I am, they were amazed by it. So on the ride and subsequent to the ride, that's something that was really interesting to us, is the amalgamation of data that was happening in real time, every second, every millisecond, as we're driving along. Think about, and what hit me as we're driving is, think about when there's more and more autonomous vehicles on the road, the more data that we have, the more safely we can navigate around the roadways and probably steer clear of people like me that maybe drive more aggressively, or my teenage sons that are trying to figure out how to navigate around the roadway. So it was a really cool experience, and one that I won't forget, and I know my boys won't forget it. So thank you for letting us be part of that.
Our pleasure. One last question that we always like to ask people is, imagine a future in 10 or 20 years. How do you imagine transportation to be different in that future?
Well, I got to say this, and you're going to laugh, but as a boy, I would get this magazine called Boys Life, and at the back of it, you had like a little marketplace. Now, our kids today don't even understand what it would be like to get a magazine in the mail and to look at a marketplace that's printed. But in the back, there was this marketplace, and in the back, there was this kit that you could buy, and using parts from a vacuum cleaner, supposedly you could make a hovercraft. And my parents would never let me buy it because they probably were smarter than I was. Well, they were, and they said, well, that's not going to work, and you're going to waste your money. I literally was saving up my money to buy this kit so that I could build a hovercraft. Fast forward to today, we're not flying around in hovercrafts, but you look at the technology that's available, whether it's in existing vehicles that are driven by private parties, or Waymo that are effectively autonomous. The technology is taking us to a place where, even though we may not be in a hovercraft yet, we're essentially using that kind of technology to navigate around the world that we live. And so I don't know what the actual mode of transportation is going to look like in 10 to 20 years. It will probably still include rubber tires on concrete and asphalt streets. But I believe that the way that we navigate and pilot those vehicles, if we pilot those vehicles at all, will be remarkably different. Because I've seen a glimpse of what that can be like today. And so for me, I'm excited for what the future holds. I'm 50. We're not supposed to talk about our age, but I'm a grandfather. I'm at that point where maybe I'm not supposed to be adopting new things or excited about change. But I'm excited about that change. I'm excited about the ability to have a vehicle pull up in front of my house that's already cool inside, that I can get in. I can take it to wherever I need to go, and it will then go and pick up somebody else, versus the fact that my cars spend so much time sitting in the garage or in parking lots. I'm excited for a future that changes the way that we use our resources. And I think that autonomous vehicles touch so many of those points in ways that we're seeing already today, but frankly in ways that we can't understand. And so I'm excited about the future. That's a long answer to the short question, but I think we have a lot to be excited about. And COVID-19 has certainly created a lot of fears and anxieties. It's created a lot of financial challenges. There's unique things in our culture and society that we're dealing with and that we need to deal with. But in the end, we're going to come out of this better and stronger. And I would think that this is only going to accelerate that change that was coming. And I think that's a good thing.
Well, thank you for sharing that perspective, Denny. I hope that there are some good changes that come out of this COVID-19 pandemic. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our viewers before we sign off?
just want to say thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of this conversation. I hope that we can continue to see great successes in the world of autonomous vehicles. I think it's a blessing across the entire spectrum, for those that are mobility impaired, for those that may be sight impaired, for those that don't have a vehicle, maybe those that don't have a place to store a vehicle. There's so many reasons why this is going to be a benefit in the future, and we're seeing manifestations of that today. So I would just say thank you for being part of the conversation, and we love to tell the story of Waymo. Again, it's commonplace to us in the PHX East Valley. For those of you that may have a chance to see this that are in other parts of the country, it's coming, and I'm excited for you to experience what we're experiencing today. And so until that time, be safe and be healthy and be blessed.
And that's it for today's discussion. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you, Denny, for your time and insights. Please visit letstalkselfdriving.com to subscribe and learn more about our upcoming panel discussions. Have a great rest of your week, and as Denny said, stay safe.